Hey everybody, bear with me. It's been a long day. Uh, Today's topic of discussion is, ironically, continuing with what we've been talking about, you know, the opposing forces of faith and fear. So today's topic is going to be, what happens when you have that, when you feel like your faith is being tested, when you have that crisis of faith, you know, what happens when you get news that's not good news, you know, and it goes to part of this healing journey is how do you react to that? How do you choose to react to that? If you're trying to get control over yourself, you know, a lot of people, they like to take the easy way. Um, they like outright, blame God and be angry for a while. You know, that's not my style. Um, but I know people. Yeah. And then there's people that, question. Like, okay, well, if I have faith, why is this happening? I'm not that person either. Uh, but I think that's the thing most people struggle with. I think that's the hardest. Well, the hardest is to keep the faith. Um, it's all for a reason. It's all for a purpose. And again, one of the rules is you have to pray as if you've already received. So I know, everything's going to be fine. But you got to let go of fear and doubt because they'll really mess you up. You know, this is the times that I was talking about. That this is why I'm a big defender of faith. Do not try to rob people of their faith. That says more about you than them. You know, a lot of people make the argument like, oh, you're following the wrong faith, or oh, there is no real faith to be followed, or there's a billion opposing views. Listen, what you choose to believe for yourself is a-okay. That's your gift of free will. Um, but don't take that away from others. If you find this sick pleasure uh, in attacking, somebody's faith, when they are leaning on it, again, that says a lot more about your character, and it kind of speaks to the behaviors of a non-believer. The lack of morality, the lack of empathy. So just something to point out, when you're trying to use your discernment with your circle. Excuse me. It's late. It's like 10 p.m. When I'm making this recording, and I've spent a good chunk of the day uh, on the phone trying to get updates, trying to figure out transportation, trying to find out, news, what's going on. Yeah, everything will be alright. I just got to take an active role. Again, life requires effort. You get out what you put into it. So if you don't put anything into it, you're not going to get anything out of it. That's something I don't think a lot of people understand. Is you got to, faith does require a lot of trust, a lot of blind trust. But I've witnessed the truth of, the power of a mustard seed of faith. You can move mountains, and that is absolutely true. Again, I've witnessed that firsthand for myself. So there's not a doubt in my mind, like Pastor's been drilling into us, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I've lived that. That is absolutely true. So there's no reason, to doubt. But sometimes in our human nature, or the voice of the enemy in the world, however you want to look at it, it causes us to stumble. And just the last video I was talking about my observation with Peter stumbling on the water. And here we go, God gives me another example of it. Oh, excuse me. Oh. So yeah. So I'm going to share a little bit of scripture. Let me find the one. Oh, here we go. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 15. And this is actually one of the ones on my cheat sheet. I recognize it. Meditate on these things. Give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all. And that's important. Again, I've kind of been getting a slew of things happening lately. And this is kind of a wake-up call, because there's some things that I haven't been letting go that I need to. Because other things deserve my attention. They're bigger priorities. So I need to divert that energy, And I cannot let myself get distracted, because I have been. I've been letting myself get very distracted lately. And I've been trying to break free of that. Like I said, trying to get ready for Bible study. That's been a great help. And again, I'm at a point where it would be very easy to, go with the low-hanging fruit and throw blame and anger around. But that's just, I've had, 3 heart attacks. Why do I want to drive myself into another one? That would do no good, and it would do the situation no good. Some people might see that as, cold-hearted, but it's not, because what good can I do for others if I let myself fall apart? What happened to me just a few months ago, when I needed people the most, nobody showed up. And I cannot do that to somebody else. You know, that's one of the things that those of us who take this healing journey do it. You know, because the saying is absolutely true: hurt people hurt people. And I've kind of been guilty of that. I've been lashing out a lot because somebody hurt me. And, you know, I'm going to hurt them back. And that's not the way that I'm supposed to be walking. You know, I'm talking the talk, but I got to walk the walk. Again, my great pride is I am who I say I am. So I have to get myself, you know, locked in. I got to get that focus back. Because I have to make that, you know, that statement has to be true. And lately it hasn't been, because again, I've been distracted. I've been talking the talk, but not walking the walk. God will humble you real quick. That was one verse, and I found another one. I marked. Again, the book of wisdom, Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 6. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Sorry, there was I thought there was another verse, but that doesn't actually apply. I love these little books that I find. It's Bible Promises. I got a whole collection of them. A little different than devotionals. Some of these are broken up topically. It's pretty much just random. I like the ones that are topical. And then there's, I gave in the first video that link, openbibleinfo.org, I believe, to look that up again and update that. That's also great if you're looking for scripture for a specific situation. And again, I have to look at the history. My family has a history of fighting this disease, cancer. And if we look at it honestly, we actually have a pretty good track record. I mean, in the end, it did take my grandmother, but it took it 4 shots to do it. This was round 2 with that, I believe. So, and it's, changing location too. So yeah, I have them, updated on the prayer list with the church, and also among my own, friends. So, again, faith. You have to believe in the power of prayer. Again, God does not accept fake. God can't work with fake. Well, he can, but he doesn't want to. He doesn't choose to. God can do whatever he wants. But again, this is those times, you have to be careful. Again, I'm very grateful for the fact that our Bible study topic is going to be spiritual warfare, because this is one of those times where the enemy gets a chink in that armor. They find that weak spot, and that would be a great time, for a lot of people to be pulled away, to be pulled astray, but it's a choice. You know, having strength is a choice. Well, strength of will, not not physical strength. Physical strength is training. Again, life requires effort. But force of will, again, you got to exercise that muscle. How many times have I let life, put me on my knees and got right back up? And this is one of those times, whatever the outcome is, it's what it's, needs to be. And I have faith in that. I have faith that however this, chapter ends, it will ultimately be for good. That is definitely one of the promises, in the Bible. I'll have to look up that verse. It just popped into my head. But yeah. And I choose to believe in that. I choose to keep the faith. Famous last words, literally and ironically. Fought the good fight, kept the faith. We kind of be, my family's kind of good at that at this point. Fighting the fight. And again, that's one of the reasons that I can stand firm in my faith is, again, I think logically, and I think, well, what have I witnessed so far? What has been my experience? And again, we got a good track record. There is no reason to doubt. No reason to let yourself sink in that. Why add more problems? Why add a crisis of faith to a moment when faith is the best thing for you to lean on? So that's why I want to make, the point. I have every reason to be extra bitter and angry right now. But it would just be an excuse. It really would. Again, an excuse to take the easy way out. Because that's what it is. The Bible never said, your faith would be easy. Never said that. Matter of fact, it said one of your jobs is to be persecuted for it. So again, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. But again, promises are it will end for your good. And God's always there. God won't abandon you. It's us who abandon God, not the other way around. And sometimes that's hard to believe, Sometimes we struggle with that. But we really shouldn't, because that's, these are those times that you got to let that strength flow through, that Holy Spirit, that peace that passes understanding, because losing your cool does no good. Worrying, freaking out, letting it get to you, none of it doesn't do the slightest bit of good. And again, the plan is supposed to end with good, so we got to help the plan, Got to do our part. Our part is keeping the faith. So that's today's food for thought. And I seem very solemn, and I am. I'm not going to say here a lie, but it's not because I'm struggling. It's, at least faith-wise, I am struggling otherwise, but, faith-wise, I'm not. I'm really not. I'm very tired. But I know that will, get better. I'm going to get some good rest tonight. That way I can be ready, at a moment's notice when need be. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready, So yeah, meditate, look in the Word. Your one of your greatest assets is faith. So don't abandon it at times when you need it. I think back when a few months ago, again, kind of staying on it, but when everybody else, everything else in the world abandoned me, God was there. God, you helped me keep it together. That's when I found the church, this church, and I love this church. It's a great church. So now it's the shoe's on the other foot now. Now it's time for it to be a two-way street. That's what faith is. That's part of that, personal relationship that we're supposed to have with God to develop. It is a two-way street. And I think some people forget that. They think, they say, the givers of the world had to be cautious because the takers don't have limits. And it kind of works that way. You can tell somebody's mentality by their stance with God. Or it's a good indicator. Anyway, I know this one's going on long, and I keep zoning out, and I apologize. But most of that, honestly, is me being tired. But yeah, if I can, impart anything, today's word is use your faith. Lean on it. Don't, it's not just happy to share in the good times. It's for you to lean on in the hard times. Because again, when the world abandoned me, God was there. So now God is asking me to have some faith in the plan, in His plan. And that's what I need to do. That'll get me through it. So hopefully next time, I'll look up some other scriptures, and I'll get some rest, and next time will be a little more pep than this time. But some things do, deserve their solemn moments too. You know, again, you don't grow without reflection. And some, reflection happens when you take things slow, when you let yourself face the things that you are afraid of. You ask God for strength. What do you think? You think you just instantly build those muscles, or no? He gives you opportunities to work those muscles out, to build your strength. Again, that's one of the ways faith works. But if you're in that mentality, you'll miss it. Then you miss the opportunity that you prayed for. The opportunity you asked God for, because it didn't come in the way you envisioned it. It didn't come in the form you wanted it to. You reject it. And then you get mad at God for it, like He didn't just put it right in your lap. Be careful of that, because that is one of the tricks the enemy likes to use. And they use deception and distraction. And it's worked, unfortunately, on too many people. That voice that says, say you've been abandoned because this is happening. No, this happened because you abandoned. Because you let that voice win. Because you let that voice pull you away. That is one thing that God has proven to me time and time again in my life. Is, whenever I abandon my faith, walk away, life gets unnecessarily hard. And then when I come back, guess what? Everything gets better. And I've seen that time and time again. So now is not the time to walk away. Alright, this is way over time, but again, this is an important topic, and I may not be representing it very well. Again, I apologize, I am human. But I am very serious about this message. Definitely, the hard times are the best times, to rely on that faith. Trust in the plan. Know that in the end, again, it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows all the way through, but the ending of the story, however it ends, it's going to be good. That's a promise. And I choose, to believe that promise. Because I've seen so many other promises kept, fulfilled. Again, it goes back to that saying, be careful when you hunt for witches, because you'll find them. And that's the thing. If you're looking for reasons to doubt faith, that's what you'll find, reasons to doubt faith. But if you look for reasons to empower your faith, that's what you will find. And again, it's all in the choice you make of what you want. From God, from the world. That confirmation bias. You got to watch that. Anyway, that's the word of the day. Keep your faith. Don't make it an unnecessary struggle. Be anxious for nothing. Alright, so keep taking care of yourself. Try and help take care of each other. I'll see you in the next one.